Hello everyone, this is a call and I am a somatic therapist. If you'd like to find out a little bit about what I do, my website is posted down below this video. So, today, Swati Nakshatra. So this is the 15th Nakshatra that I'm covering in my sort of series of Kundalini Yoga as it relates to the Vedic lunar mansions. So Swati is really... I think is actually quite interesting. There's some contradictory messages that come along with this particular nakshatra in the symbols that are associated with it, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit because it's a bit confusing, this nakshatra, because if you look at the padas, or the four divisions this nakshatra is divided up into, you have kind of contradictory energies here, and I'm not saying that Jupiter and Saturn are inherently contradictory energies, but one is essentially expansive, which is Jupiter, and one is essentially contracting, or Saturn. So Saturn, its spiritualization process is through contracting of one's focus or energy into material things. And so that's one of the reasons why Saturn oftentimes is associated with pain, fear, and suffering, and mishappenings, and things like that, because those are the things, again, for better or worse, that evolve us as human beings. Jupiter, on the other hand, is more philosophical and expansive and very intelligent. So the four padas that Swati is divided up into, pada 1, or this first division, is Jupiter, then it's Saturn in the second, Saturn in the third, and then finally Jupiter in the fourth. So you're getting this progression of expansive high-mindedness into focus on material things, and once again back out into expansion. So Swati, when we're looking at the particular the gunas, or the fundamental qualities that exist in all creation, what we're looking at here is on a basic level, on the sort of impersonal mind, on the deep sort of life path vibe level, we have tamasic energy, which means material. It means inertia, but when I say inertia, it doesn't mean like it's not moving, it's not changing. That's not the case. Even a rock is changing. We just can't see it. Plus the process of change is slower. So that's on the primary level. Again, this is the impersonal mind. On the secondary level, which is kind of the negative mind, the attitude of these individuals is tamasic, and what I mean by that is defensive. And this will make sense when I go into the first symbol, but again, it's defensive. So on these two basic levels, we get a kind of rigidity. And then finally, on the tertiary level, or the third level, what we have is what we're kind of flowing out into life with. And this is on the level in Yogi Bhajan's flowchart of the universal mind. This would relate to the water principle, and that is, again, what we're looking at is sattvic, which is neutral. The interesting thing about neutral is it is both all and nothing. So meaning, within neutral, you can see positive and negative, and you can also not see positive and negative. It's neutral. So these folks tend to be, because of this property, tend to be very intelligent. They're also, can be some indecision when it comes to making, well, not indecision, but I guess difficulty with decisions, and this can happen when their spiritualization process begins to kick in. When I'm looking at these energies, what I'm seeing here is a sign that's largely ruled by Rahu. Now, Rahu is the north node of the the north node of the moon, as they would refer to in Western astrology. In Vedic thought, it's the Rahu is this. It's the head without a body. I don't want to get into too many complex symbols here, but it's the head without a body. Now, the south node in Vedic astrology is the body without a head. So the body without a head is your Ketu, or your subconscious. Deeper, it's a deeper sort of past karmic vibe that we're all kind of like living out in this lifetime. And again, it's more automatic. Rahu is a focus. Rahu is the head without a body, meaning it's focused on what it wants. It's a little obsessive. Signs that are ruled by Rahu tend to be a little bit obsessive. And so now what are these folks obsessive about? And I'll get to that in a moment. So this intense focus, this obsession, really will kind of, like I said, it'll make a lot of sense when we look at the first symbol, which is coral. So why are these folks symbolized by coral? The thing with coral is that it's alive, but it's hard. It's hard on the outside, but it's alive on the inside. Coral is reproduced from within. So meaning that their process of change is actually internal, and things are excreted externally. So this hard, rigid outer shell is protection. So remember what I said about tamasic. So tamasic is the negative mind. In a lot of ways, that's one way you can look at tamasic energy, is negative mind, which is the quickest aspect of our mind. It is there to preserve us and to protect us. So you get some rigidity in these folks, a little bit of rigid. In terms of their focus, it's obsessive and rigid to some degree, and it doesn't mean they're not open-minded. They're open-minded people, and they're very, very intelligent people, but they're focused on what it is they want. So I wrote down in the bottom here the word ambitious. So these folks are ambitious, and their path in life, which is called artha, means it's kind of driven. It's driven by, there's directed action. So they're driven by action. And action basically being the motivation in and of itself. So the coral, again, the coral concept, this tough outer shell and sort of sensitive insides. These folks are also fairly sensitive. But again, with sensitive people who are sensitive on the insides, again, the tendency is to create greater rigidity, greater outer shell. And this all kind of corresponds to, again, those padas I mentioned earlier, with Saturn being the two, I guess, the second and the third pada are both ruled by Saturn. And those particular divisions, again, what you're getting contraction. And so Saturn can sometimes lead to a type of rigidity. So this very driven path, this ambitious path, it's individualistic. These folks are, again, highly individualistic, and what individualism does is that it wants freedom. It doesn't really want to be told what to do or anything along those lines. So this highly individualistic sign exists within the overarching umbrella of Libra. So Libra is air. It's again, intellect. The thing about Libra, though, is that it's in terms of its overall position on the zodiac, it is the point of, and scales, for instance, are associated with Libra. So Libra is the position on the zodiac in which the material and the spiritual sort of motivations in life are coming into balance. Those tendencies are coming into balance. Now, these folks, though, again, as I perceive this particular sign, their spiritualization process usually doesn't occur until some degree of dissatisfaction. Again, these are very driven individuals, so they're going to be driven towards whatever their goal is. And again, this is an affluent sign. These folks achieve a great deal and can achieve a great deal in life. You have to look at other aspects of their charts, but generically speaking, these are, again, very driven people who are going to achieve a great deal. So you often see people in finances and things like that associated with this placement. Now, the other thing that happens with these folks is the spiritualization process begins to kick in when they finally achieve. So they achieve some stuff and they're like, oh, I want more. Again, Rahu doesn't stop. Rahu is just this obsessive, pushy energy that's always kind of going at it. And so this energy of Rahu wants these folks to continue. And the problem is that it's empty, it's bottomless. I mean, the further you go down the sort of material, I guess the path of material things, you're not going to find that sort of deeper satisfaction that ultimately we're all seeking in this life. So these folks, they satisfy that sort of need for security that exists. So they achieve this. They achieve their security. They basically allow themselves additional freedoms. So again, money in life is freedom to some degree, at least in the construct that we've created. Money can give us certain freedoms. You can travel more, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing is that these folks will move towards what it is they're looking for, and then they get there and like, this isn't it. This is not it. So they may continue on this path literally forever of seeking these pleasurable things, seeking material achievements and pleasure and things along those lines. So there's a principle here of passion versus pleasure that's going on as well. So these are very passionate individuals. They can be. Or they can be hedonists and they're just seeking out pleasurable things. So pleasure can convert to a sort of functional passion for something. And again, I kind of think about this as a little bit like sexual transmutation. It's about converting a base energy. And so in Taoist thought, you would call that Jing. That's Jing. And as you start to do these various practices and start to live a particular way, what ends up happening is this Jing then converts to Qi, which is a more subtle form of energy. And then, anyway, this is a kind of a spiritual alchemy that occurs. So these folks are alchemical in nature in that they are seeking out those material things, achieving those material things, and realizing, this isn't it. And so then they're forced to start to focus on those spiritual things, and they will go full bore all the way in on the spiritual things as well. So I want to go ahead and cover the second symbol, which is the young reed. So why, coral is this very rigid thing that reproduces from the inside, meaning the evolutionary path is within. So these folks are evolving within. Now a young reed, what it can kind of symbolize is to think about tall grass. So the wind blows and it goes this way or that way. Again, we have sattvic energy here on what's being sort of projected out into the world. So that, again, that's neutral. And it's also the ability to see both sides. And you get at what I'm getting at here. So it's the ability to see both sides, to sway back and forth, which can lead to some degree of indecisiveness, but also a lot of open-mindedness. So the young reed also doesn't break. It bends. So these folks are also highly adaptable. But again, they have to feel secure. They have to feel like their personal freedoms are not threatened. And once they do feel secure and their personal freedoms are not threatened, again, they're very socially dynamic and they can sway and move. And like I said, they can really get along in life quite well. So projection 3, which is associated with this in Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind, it's called the prospector, I believe. And what the prospector does is that, again, a prospector has to be able to, let's put it this way, they can't have a rigid mind. So the thing with these folks isn't the rigidity of the mind. Their mind is not rigid. It's other aspects of their personality which might be rigid. I'm going to go ahead and read a quote real quick from Bipin Bihari's book. So it says, this asterism basically means angle, is more concerned with the spirit flowing through it than the vessel that contains it. So the spirit flowing through it than the vessel that contains it, meaning it's more interested in subtle things. And it's not necessarily interest, it's what moves these people is more subtle things. The subtlety of the mind and the intellect, for instance. The body is not as much a concern. So I'm not going to make any sort of statements here about why their bodies are not the concern, the vessel is not the concern. People I've met with Swati in their charts, this is sometimes apparent. And I won't go into details on this. But like I said, it is sometimes apparent that their body is not the concern. Again, their intellect is doing all the work here. It's all the drive. So the prospector has to be able to see possibilities, potentials, and things of that nature. So again, this is a really, really interesting chart. And the exercise for this practice, or for this particular placement, is also quite interesting. So again, quick recap. Now Swati, the Swati energy here, it's all about achievement, individuality, freedom, and then eventually the spiritualization process. When they meet resistance, that is dissatisfaction. So one of the ways to kind of find out whether or not this energy is relevant to you would be to look at your natal chart, and I have a link, not a link, but a website posted down below this video. What you're going to want to look at is the nakshatras that are ruling your moon and your ascendant primarily, but also the sun is important, and this energy also can be seen in other planets as well. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I've created the connection between Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind, and the third projection with Swati Nakshatra. All right, here we are. So this is Yogi Bhajan's book, The Mind. And here in the back of the book is, I was rather obsessed with this chart the first time I saw it. You can see it's all sorts of falling apart. But what we have here is Chitta, the universal mind. And this is how, from the universal mind, how I guess the aspects of our mind as we know it precipitate out through the elements. So ether being the most subtle, air, fire, water, and then earth. So Swati is tamasic energy at its base. And I got this information from Bepin Bihari's book, also several other books out there and several other videos on YouTube as well, which go over the sort of gunas as they relate to the nakshatras. This Swati, again, has tamasic energy at its base, or its impersonal mind. On a secondary level, you get your functional mind. In this case is the negative mind, which is at the level of like kind of fire and air here. And then finally we have the neutral mind, which goes down to the prospector. So that's how I managed to come to the connection here. So what you do is you flip through here, you find projection 3 in Yogi Bhajan's book. So here it is, projection 3, the prospector, how to deal with a coincidence, a little bit of blah, blah, blah. Then the exercise, which is called the 7-wave Sat Nam meditation. And I'll show you this in a moment. And it's done for 11 to 31 minutes. Here's the posture. All right. So in the next segment, I'll go ahead and demonstrate this exercise. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go over projection 3, or the prospector now. So this is one of the first meditations I think I ever learned when I was looking at, first started studying Kundalini Yoga. I kind of found it difficult when I first learned it, primarily because I didn't really understand the chakras. So the chakras, and I want to be super brief here, they're not in the body. They're in our field. The physical body, though, has a correspondence. So there's, the story here is as within, so without, as above, so below, meaning everything in the physical has a more subtle resonance. And I'll keep it as simple as that. So what we're doing here is, as we're doing this particular mantra, which is, it's creating the undulations of the sound sa. So it's SAT, sat is the word we're saying here. So sat and nam means true name, essentially. But what we're doing here is we're undulating the sound sat. So through each one of the chakras, a bit like we're kind of weaving it in a wave-like pattern until we get to our crown, which will be nam. So it's essentially first chakra, or first area you want to put your awareness of in the body would be around your root. So think about your perineum, tailbone area. Second area would be the sexual organs. Third area would be the sort of belly, solar plexus. So think about below the sternum but above the navel, that sort of solar plexus area. Heart is 4. 5 is throat. 6 is the third eye. So we have sat, and then nam, out the crown. So we're undulating sa 6 times until we get to the third eye point, and then nam is at the crown. So to make things more complex, again, this is one of the beautiful things about the various kriyas and exercises that Yogi Bhajan, basically taught us, is that they pull the nervous system into, several different focal points, which in a way makes these exercises a complete kriya or set, because they're engaging the nervous system on multiple levels. So it's not like you're just focusing and concentrating only on the brow point. There's all these other points of focus and concentration. So, one of the things that you want to kind of look at here with this particular nakshatra, again, is that you're moving your awareness subtly upward and then out the crown. So the hands here are going to be into another bandha or lock. So you're going to have them balanced out. Again, this is not touching the chest, it's out in front of the chest. And you want to find that balance point. And the eyes you want to bring to the tip of the nose. So focal points here, we got tip of the nose, hands like so. We're moving our awareness through the 6 sort of lower chakras until we get to the crown. And then we're moving our awareness up and out the crown, a bit like a fountain. So one final detail, which is what's going on with your pelvic floor and your navel point, or specifically the area right around the belt line. So what you want to do here is when you inhale, before you do this mantra, this mantra is done in one breath. So you inhale, deep breath. You want to relax everything down below. You want to relax your belly, your pelvic floor, your ribs, everything you can relax to bring in as much air as possible. And then before you start the mantra, you want to go ahead and pull a very slight root lock. Now what root lock, or the other term for root lock, is mula bandha. Mula means root. So you're pulling this very gradual root lock while you're making these undulations and these sounds. And then when you get to nam, you're further cinching the lock. And what this does is it creates a pressure gradient upward. And so many of the techniques in yoga and tai chi and qigong and all these different practices, particularly the ones that are more internal martial arts, so to speak, what they're attempting to do is to create this internal hydraulics, or this internal pressure. And this pressure cleanses the various subtle energy channels, or nadis. You can call them meridians if you wish. And again, this is part of the cleansing process, is this pressure gradient that's created either through breathing intensely or through pulling things like the locks. So let me put it all in the summary here. So first, hands in prayer pose. Balance that weight across the palms, quote unquote, about 25 pounds of pressure. Second, eyes at the tip of the nose. So third is a long, deep inhale. And you want to bring your awareness down to the first chakra area, which would be your pelvic floor. And you're going to go ahead and begin the mantra. And as you're doing this mantra, like I said, you're gradually cinching root lock ever tighter. Sat Nam Sat Nam. One more time. Sat Nam. Again, you're mentally tracing this pathway as you're doing this exercise over and over and over again. So the duration of time, so the closure here, so when you're done after 11 to 31 minutes, I suggest maybe starting off with 3 minutes if you're a newbie to all the Kundalini yoga stuff. However, 11 minutes is a great amount of time for this exercise, and I'm not saying 31 minutes is better. It's up to you. But again, the idea here is we're moving our awareness up through these various places in the body until we get to our crown, and then we're imagining, or we're bringing our sense of awareness to the crown and out, again, like a fountain. So keep in mind with these exercises, they require discipline. With this particular nakshatra we covered earlier, discipline is a big deal. It's what gets them out of the pleasure principle and into their passion. So this movement from pleasure to passion requires discipline. And so these exercises I suggest people do for at least 40 days to begin with. That's how you're going to see the true impact of any particular exercise or any technique, because that's the amount of time it takes for the nervous system to adapt to a new pattern. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this exercise. And I forgot I forgot to say, to finish the exercise, you inhale, retain the breath, press the palms together firmly, and you want to retain the breath for 10 to 20 seconds. Exhale, relax, and meditate with open awareness for at least 5 minutes. So with all that said, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate it.